Hi, everyone, and welcome to today's College Essay Pro Chat. I am Susan Napo, CEO of WOW Writing Workshop, and today I have a guest, Katie Andersen of College Fit. She is the expert on student athletes, and today we are talking about our shared this is where our companies and our experience intersect, which is on essays about sports, essays for student athletes, essays for students who are going to play sport in college and students who are not, students who do nothing except sports, and what else are they going to write about? We've been talking about this for a while, and we thought, we really should do something together. So here we are. Katie, I'm going to let you introduce yourself for just a couple minutes. Tell us a little bit more about who you are, what you do, what kind of services you provide. I will ask the questions, I will let you answer, and then I will add my 2 cents. Go ahead, tell us about yourself.
I love it. Thank you. So Susan and I have been friends for many years, actually. um, so thank you for having me on. I really appreciate it. I'm based in Southern California in a little town called Dana Point, kind of halfway between Los Angeles and San Diego in Orange County. I grew up in Southern California in a town called Irvine. You might be familiar with UCI. I went to University High School right across the street from UCI. I was a recruited athlete. I played 3 sports in high school. I ran track, I played volleyball, and I played soccer. I was recruited for volleyball at Brown University and soccer at Duke. And I ended up playing soccer at Duke on their very first women's soccer team. I played for 2 years and then decided to leave the team. We were headed on this crazy trajectory. We were by my freshman year, I played every minute of every game. I was a starter. Life couldn't have been better. By my sophomore year, my playing time got cut in half because he recruited 11 more freshmen. So there were 22 of us. And I just saw what was happening. And by year 5 of the program, they were playing for the national championship against UNC Chapel Hill. So I'm glad that I made the decision when I did, but I use a lot of those experiences when I'm working with student athletes throughout their recruiting process as well as their applications, because I know what it feels like to be an athlete who gave up the dream and had to become a person outside of my athletic identity. And a lot of these kids are going, go through that. I work with a lot of student athletes who choose at some point to maybe give up the recruiting path and just be a normal student. So writing about that, or choosing not to write about it, or whatever that looks like, is kind of part of the journey. I've been a college counselor for 12 years. I did the UCLA extension program, and I've specifically been working with student athletes the entire time that I've been an IEC. I have a private practice where I work with families, and I also partner with college counselors. So if you have athletes who need help, as well as my colleagues in my other group, the student athlete advisors, can certainly help you with that. And then our student athlete advisors group, that includes Amy Bryant, Reed Meyer, and Joe Slater. And we are all IECs who specialize in athletics. And we do online education for counselors and families around the athletics recruiting process, and hopefully can elevate all of our practices, so that if you don't specialize in athletics, you've got people to turn to who can help support your practice.
Thank you. Excellent. And can you please put a link to your site where you help professionals? And we have ICs here, and we also have high school counselors. And so I think it would be helpful for them to know how to find you if they need you. Okay, I'm going to give Katie a second to do that. There it is. So you are welcome to contact Katie also, and we will share that I can always share that information. So and this is I always start my session this way. We're going to answer as many questions as we can. If we don't answer your question, feel free to contact me, Susan at wowwritingworkshop.com. I will answer. It will actually be me. It will not be a bot. It will not be somebody else on my behalf, unless it's someone else who can answer your question. So we're going to get started with a basic one. Katie, for students for whom sports are really their thing and their main or only activity through their lives, how do you help them write about sports in a way that is individual, interesting, and not cliche?
Right. So I will say I didn't mention in my intro, but I'm actually taking the WOW writing workshop right now. I'm in the middle of it. So the good news is I can kind of refer back to some of the phases that I've been through and stages of writing. So obviously, trying to avoid cliche topics is important. Um, some of those cliche topics that you might come up against that kids just naturally sort of want when you ask them what happened, tell me about an experience, right? The big game, the big championship win, the big, basically talking about how successful they have been at their sport. That is an easy one, right? That kids kind of fall into the trap of wanting to write about that. And so I think for that, to turn that around, I think in fact in almost nearly every one of these scenarios that I'll talk about, I think you'll find that the exercise in your workshop structure where the students have to write outside of the essay, this is where you can take, allowing that student to say they want to write about their whatever topic that is, right? And then you get them to identify why does it matter? And then you start taking that and extrapolating it out to all the other scenarios in their life in which they've had a similar, it doesn't have to be a sports experience. It could be something else that happened in the classroom, something else that happened with work or a volunteer experience or any sort of experience. It doesn't even matter, right? Where they can say, talk about traits and values and characteristics about themselves that stood out. And then when they start to really write outside of the essay is when you go, oh, look at all of these things, these other things in your life that you've done that relate back to this topic, and get them to expand their minds a little bit.
Well,
So I think that general theme, right? So other,
I'm gonna, oh, I'm
yeah,
sorry. I want to show a graphic quickly then to illustrate. I was going to show this anyway, but this is a good time to do it. So some of the people in this webinar have been through our training, some have not, some will in the future, some will never. So I always like to make sure that I explain whether you're using our method or not, you can do what Katie is saying. It starts though, and this is I'm going to give you a link so that you can download this, everyone. This is something we've added to our website. We share it a lot, and I'd like you to have a copy of it. It's a two-sided version of our method in a graphic. On the front are our 10 steps with an explanation, and on the back, and this is a PDF, it's a fillable PDF where you can make notes to yourself about how you do or don't do this. So either to improve your process or to see how you align with us and really to help you clarify. The one thing that Katie didn't mention, but I think is assumed, is that students understand the prompt, that they understand the task. In our experience, that's the biggest roadblock. That's the first roadblock. It has nothing to do with the actual essay that they're writing. Well, it does ultimately, but they don't understand the task. They don't know what they're doing. They don't know why they're doing it. They don't know how the essay fits into the application. And so they sort of think of topics. I should write about sports. I shouldn't write about sports. And I say, I don't want to talk about that with you. I first want to know, do you understand the prompt? The way we do this, and any of you who've been through CEE or in our partners program know this, those who aren't have heard me say it. You have to give them a way to understand it, and then you need to check for understanding. So you need to ask them, after they've read the prompt or listened to you talk about it or watched your video or whatever they've done, what is this? I'm talking about the Common App essay. What is this essay for? Why are you writing this? And then what do people already know about you? And these students will say they know that I'm like the soccer champion of Massachusetts. Yeah, they already know that. But what don't they know about you? And so we're distinguishing between accomplishments and characteristics here. And then we're checking for understanding. Do they know? So then we say, what else don't they know about you? And we've given them a prompt. We've given them a lot of instructions. They should get the answer right. Like, this is not a quiz. This is like, did you read the page I gave you? Did you read the instructions? Did you watch the video? And the answer to what don't they know you is characteristics. They don't know what kind of person I am. So I can be the soccer champ of Massachusetts. Last year, there was a soccer champ of Massachusetts who wasn't me, who was someone else who had different characteristics. So it's not the accomplishment of being the star, which Katie was suggesting already. So then we brainstorm ideas, da 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 da. And the exercise she was talking about is down in step 6. This is important. You've made sure they understand the prompt. You've brainstormed ideas. They've given you every cliche they can think of. And you, because you're so good at this, have helped them find something, find a story that maybe happens in a sport, maybe doesn't. They free write, they write a draft, and then you get to say, you also talked about this. And I also know this about you. And you take what they've written and you give them spots in what they've written or from things they've talked about that they haven't written, and you let them expand. And the key here, like Katie said, is having them write outside the essay. Now, I'm going to just give you, I'm going to give you a link to a page right now, and I'll repeat this where you can actually get this page if you'd like it. You can get it at any time. But I think that's really important that what Katie's talking about is making sure that you know where you are and why, whether you follow our 10 steps or not. Don't just tell them yes, tell them no, let them write randomly. Always check in, make sure you're all on the same page. Okay. If we're gonna take 10 minutes a question, we're gonna get through like 3.
I
So
I know.
I'll give
So
you
I,
another
I just
one.
wanted to briefly touch on some of the other
Yeah.
cliche topics that people might hear and
Mhm.
ways to sort of get around
Yeah.
those. So
Go.
second one would be, my hard work and dedication paid off, right? This one, I mean, this comes with a lot of, I mean, this could be an academic thing, this could be an athletic thing, whatever. Again, dissecting down what did they actually do, what actions did they take that demonstrated that hard work and dedication will open the door to other conversations around the characteristics that we're talking about. So again, whether that's in itself it's sort of cliche, but I think when you dig deeper you get into the deeper meaning and who the student is truly.
Excellent. And my
um,
phrase is always, tell me about a time when you worked hard and showed dedication. Amazing what you can get. It's not even a question. It's just, oh, you work hard. I'm so glad to hear that. Tell me about a time when you worked hard. And then you can go into the conversation.
right.
What else?
I think injuries are another cliche topic that, and I feel like with injuries, there's a couple different directions that the student athlete can take in terms of their essay. One is when one door closed, another one opened. And I've seen this work beautifully with a number of kids. I've got a student at University of Michigan right now who started his essay with, I woke up on after elbow surgery. This kid was a really talented baseball pitcher, woke up after elbow surgery and realized that I would not be pitching for the next year. And my entire recruiting was gone, like all of it, just boom, down the drain. So what am I going to do? And pivoted to, okay, I've already been spending time working on my financial literacy education project and getting involved in things. Now I'm going to just take that and run with it as fast as I can right? So he was able to talk about when that one door closed, another one opened. But the door closing was actually a really important part of his shift in his
Ah,
mindset, right?
right.
So I think that is a very, that's a great way to talk about the, injury and the resilience. And then the other one is just simply, what did I do to come back from this injury, which honestly is kind of a more boring essay, to be honest. I think
PT?
yes, yeah, because that's what everybody does, right? And how you worked hard. So I really like that when one door closed, another one opened, to get them to talk about all the other things in their life that are actually important too.
That's great.
Um,
Well, I do
being a
want to
team
add
player.
something about PT. Sorry to interrupt
Yeah,
you.
yeah,
I'm
go
going to
ahead.
say one thing I have found, and I've used this example with students who did go back, and I'm talking about, more regular kid athletes. They're not necessarily being recruited, but like all they've ever done is play baseball. So this is their thing. One kid is on the debate team, another one is on the baseball team. And they will talk about, I worked hard and I did my physical therapy and I went to my appointments. And I will say to them, so again, like similar to what we're saying here, a lot of people have done this. Your experience was your experience. So tell me, what did that look like? And sometimes what I'll get there is a story of a kid who's had everything come easily to them.
Mm-hmm,
And this was hard. And they
mm-hmm,
could have given up and said, forget it. I'm not going to do it. It's too hard. It's exhausting. It's painful. I don't like it. It's boring. But they did it anyway. So then what you're looking for here are those characteristics, right? You're looking for that underlying, who are you? How do you behave? In this case, it's how do you behave in a situation that's unfamiliar to you? You're used to things working. You're used to being good at things, and now you can't. Okay.
Right. I think another one, and that you already sort of mentioned this in the beginning, but the whole sports in my life, I don't do anything else. Especially for elite athletes who truly are at the top of their game, and they don't have time. It's not that they chose not to; it's just that they simply do not have the hours in the day to do that. And so, how can you use sports as a lens for qualities about yourself? I think there's been a couple of things I want to mention here. One is I'll just have an example of a football player, and this is also kind of combined with the student had a concussion, so an injury, but he knew he kind of already was on the path of knowing that he wanted to be a coach, a high school football coach someday. So when he got that concussion and he couldn't play, he immediately went to his coach and said, "Coach, I want to learn about coaching. Like, what can I do to help you?" And so he sat on the sideline. He analyzed all the plays. He was the guy who took care of the video and made sure that everything was, fully, flushed out before they would go into their team analysis. He watched what it took to be a sophomore, a frosh soph, or a JV football coach and tried mentoring some of those younger kids who were kind of lost in the process. He took advantage of the time that he had to look at that career focus that he had but mesh it all back together. And again, I thought that was a brilliant, and he didn't do a whole lot of other stuff. He didn't volunteer. I mean, he did a little bit of volunteering, but like he got to talk about career goals and things that he was really, really good at doing through the lens of sports.
I have a question for you on that. How do you get them? And this is one of the questions we got is, specific prompts, specific questions. How do you get a student to realize that the story of wanting to be a coach eventually, that this is the opportunity? Because and we all know this, like I'm gonna, again, like our step two is brainstorm ideas. The ideas they bring us are cliche, that happened when they were 12, are too big, are, whatever, heard it before. And that's okay because what we say is if they're just conversation starters, they just need to get me into the beginning of, oh, you think that your injury is like the most significant thing that ever happened to you, which it did to that student. It is the biggest thing that ever happened. So I don't want to tell them, oh, that's boring, let's do something else. I want to ask them a different question. I want to give them a different prompt. So what do you do? How do you do it?
So I think it's interesting that you say that because sometimes the conversations take a couple of conversations,
Mhm.
right? I've had kids write whole essays because they just needed to get it out. Like we literally scrunched up the essay and threw it out. And we're like, okay, did you get that out of your system now? Now we're going to write the essay that you really want to write. So yes, I think it's allowing them to talk. It's allowing them to be heard. It's listening to the pain, the frustration, the challenges that they had, but making notes as you go, right? As the coach, you're sitting here trying to make notes of like, and I loved it when I did your workshop in my one-on-one with my coach. What I hear you saying is,
Yeah. Yes.
and
A
sort
lot
of
of that.
threading the needle on, okay, you can hear those little, bits and pieces of
Right.
storylines that come out when a student is talking. So I think it's first listening to them. It's a bit therapeutic,
Mhm.
honestly, for them,
Yeah.
and they need to get it out and be heard. And then you can start asking them more questions that are a little more pointed and let's talk about this and let's talk about that. And that just unfortunately takes time.
Yeah.
And it might be more time than you have. So you need to find ways. I think your pre-writing exercise, all the things you allow these students to do to get it all out on paper, not in a conversation. If you can do it in advance of your conversation, then that is a good way to allow them to get it out.
I'll be interested to hear because as you're saying, I've had them write entire essays and then we balled them up and threw them away. And I thought, I want to check back with Katie in September and see if she's had fewer of those. I'm hoping
Yes,
because it's
it is.
true. One of the things that we do is we do that step one. We ask them, and anyone here can do that. Make sure they understand the question. This is not it's not asking if you're unique. It's not asking if you've done something no one's ever done. The question is not what's the most important experience you've ever had. They really need to understand that there is an overarching question, which is tell us something that we don't already know about you, which doesn't mean you can't write about sports because we know you play sports. And
Right.
then there's these six options. I look at number seven as like the absolute, like if we absolutely can't do anything, which in 15 years of doing this, I think I've had two kids use option seven, but that's a different conversation. But then going inside and saying, look, these are questions, these are places you can go,
Mhm.
making sure they understand, then letting them come up with their four ideas where we don't just say, what do you want to write about? My sports injury. We say, tell us what the prompt is that you're answering. Tell me what you think you want to write about. Give me a little bit of detail on it. This is all in writing ahead of time. And what characteristics does this illustrate? So I'm reinforcing the idea of characteristics. And then we have the discussion that Katie's describing, where all of you, as experienced counselors, can listen. This is part of why we do this, right? We like students, we think they're interesting. So if we get out of the mindset of like, I'm the expert on what you should write about, and instead think, you have something, student. You've got it. You just don't know because you think, I mean, this is probably true of most students with anything they're good at. You don't see how that day that you took three buses to get to physical therapy was like a really unusual thing. Most kids wouldn't do that. That's amazing. Or that you turned it around into like, teach me something about being a coach. Most kids wouldn't do that. That's interesting. And that
Right.
shows what kind of person you are. All
Right.
right. What else? Tell me if you need
So
a question, because I know I
I
sent
think,
Katie a bunch of preliminary questions, so I'll let you run with that. Go ahead.
no, I think those were sort of the main, I
Yeah.
think, key cliche
Mm-hmm.
topics that I come across most, most commonly,
Yeah.
and sort of how to dissect that to hopefully allow them. Well, and I will say this too, and I was going to wait till the end, but I'll do it now because I think
Okay.
this is really important. I know that a lot of you college counselors out there were not athletes yourselves. Sometimes you're happy, your kids play sports, or you've been around it enough that you feel confident. Um, I don't know if anybody in this chat right now is a fan of Ted Lasso. I am a huge Ted Lasso fan. And if you know Ted Lasso, then you also know John Wooden, um, the Pyramid of Success. These are two things that if you want to understand the mentality in your student athletes, what's going on in their brains, highly, highly recommend you watch all of Ted Lasso and then maybe buy John Wooden's Pyramids of Success, Coach Wooden's Pyramid of Success. It's not a long book, it's actually very short. But I just wanted to quickly read off some of the. He is a coach, legendary coach and philosopher, and his the theme, themes or characteristics that come through his book are obviously what Ted Lasso and that whole writing staff wrote about when they wrote their show. But I just wanted to read off what are the building blocks of Pyramid of Success, because I think a lot of these words will come up in your students' essays as themes or characteristics about themselves. So quickly: industriousness, enthusiasm, friendship, cooperation, loyalty, self control, alertness, initiative, intentness, condition, skill, team spirit, poise, confidence, and competitive greatness.
Ah.
So his entire book, John Wooden's book, is about these themes through the lens of sports, but also through the lens of life. And that's where the two of those meet. So my recommendation is that you these are great tools when you do work with student athletes to be able to pull these stories out of kids, because you can highlight all these great characteristics.
And then we can use, tell me about a time when, fill in the blank, you were this, this, and this. And that's important. I'm going to show my graphic one more time because I think it's relevant to what you're saying. Because the one thing I have found over and over and over and over again is students don't understand that the Common App essay for sure, and most essays need to be grounded in characteristics, qualities, something that is you. And the topic is a means to an end. The story you're going to tell, the examples you're going to give are a means to an end. Whether you're writing a Common App essay, UCPIQ, writing a supplemental essay. And someone asked about, writing in your activity section. And we could talk about that a little bit too. Like, how do you write about your lifetime as a lacrosse player in 150 words, right? And 150, yeah, so not
Characters.
150 characters, like
Yeah.
not words. But I want to show you something here. So again, reinforcing when we make sure they understand the prompt, we talk about characteristics. And remember, I'm an instructional designer. I'm a teacher. I'm thinking I want to do something they're going to be able to carry with them. When I teach students, I do it this way. When I teach professionals, I do it this way. I want to make sure you can use what I give you. So, step one, we want to understand the prompt. Step two, we take that idea of characteristics and we say, like I said before, we give me these ideas. Tell me what characteristics they illustrate. Even if the story is the most cliche thing ever, go to those characteristics, right? If they don't have very many, if they're not sure, take the ones Katie just mentioned. Someone put the link to the book in the chat. So there you go.
Thank you,
And
Lisa.
then you get to step three. Focus on theme. You need what we call an anchor story, which doesn't have to be the whole essay. It can be a piece of the essay, but it's an anchor. Every student can start with a theme. What happened? Why does it matter? What's my story? Why am I telling you this? What do you learn about me? Then they do the free write. Like Katie said, get it out. For the kids who just need to write it because it's emotional and it's important, this is where they do it. For the kids who are like, this is boring, I don't want to do it, they'll give you like 100 words and then you'll be done. And it's okay, but it's an exercise. Then they write a first draft. When you get to step six, and this is what Katie started with earlier, you can go back to everything they said about theme. About the prompt in step one. You can go back to the conversation you had when they brainstormed. You can pull out characteristics you heard them talk about. You can ask them to elaborate on stories. You can say, take this and tell me about a time. They might say, I worked really hard. And you can say, that's great. What did that look like? A colleague once gave me this suggestion, which I loved, where she said, think visually. Ask the student, if I was standing, fill in the blank, on the field, if I was in the bus with you, if I was after the game, if whatever, pick a place where you can draw a picture and create a scene. What would I see? What would I hear? Oh, I'd be sitting at the table. I'd be helping keep score. I want to help them. These are the questions, these are the prompts, right? I want to help them realize that they have stories to tell. And that's really important. So Katie, I do want to ask you briefly. We're talking about college essays, but I think this is a good one too. Um, how do you create an impactful 150 character blurb for the activities list?
So I think when it comes to having a blurb, um, most of my student athletes do play for, competitive programs. I always have them if they're playing high school sports and club sports. Those are two separate things, right? Two separate entries. I try to get them to focus as much as I can. If they've been in a leadership role, captain, or some other leadership role on their team, showing consistency. So how many years have they been doing this thing? So building that leadership responsibility into the title of the job. I try to use those character lines in the Common App, without outside of the description, use those lines to build in captain year 11 or 12 or whatever, right? Don't have them put that in the description. Try to use as many data points as they can in the description. How well did the team do? Did you win any awards? Were you all league this? CIF that? How good were you, or how good was your team is one element of that. But in some cases, when kids don't play for really, winning teams, they have to, there's not a whole lot to write about there. So that can be hard. You just try to fill the space with maybe some more of these, how did you contribute to your team?
Mm-hmm.
And getting back to some of these characteristics that
Right.
may not be, giant win-loss records, but they might be more softer skill leadership role type things in terms of
That's
how they help
great.
their team. So
Yeah.
I hopefully that helps.
I think that makes a lot of sense. It's like you want to use what, and this is important too. For students, they need to understand that the activities list is a place to talk about accomplishments. That's where you talk about what did you do? I don't
Mhm.
need to know who you are, why you did it, how you thought about it. That doesn't belong in your activities list most of the time. So in the essays, you can talk about those characteristics. And there was one more question that is similar to what we've already talked about, but I think it's important to address. Someone, Alana wrote, isn't working hard in a sport or overcoming a challenge like an injury a cliche? Here's the thing. Cliches are cliches because they happen to everyone. They became cliches because they're familiar and common. And we say, and I will close with this, let Katie give any final words. Embrace the cliche.
Mhm.
Don't tell them it's a cliche because to them, it's not a cliche. I'll tell you a secret. In our college essay experience training, we were just talking about this in one of our staff meetings. A lot of counselors write about being a counselor. It's not a cliche. It's what they do. We don't tell them, oh my gosh, everybody writes about that. Don't say that. No, those of you who've done this know. We tell you, that's really interesting. Tell me about your journey. What did you do? Why did you do it? How do you feel about it? So it's the same thing. We joke about it. We're like, oh, it's like a sports injury. It's the topic everyone wants to write about. But it's okay to start with the cliche. What you want is to find out what does it look like to this particular student. So, Katie, thank you so much for being here. Any final words for our webinar attendees?
I think, well, I love what you just said. I think that that's true. You can turn what is starts out as maybe a little cliche into something that is deeper. I think it's also important, and I know that this is a theme that applies outside of sports too, but allowing kids to be okay with writing about things that make them vulnerable. I think every child feels like they need to only show success, and I think that vulnerability is something that actually makes us all human, and admitting or coming clean with your vulnerability and exposing that vulnerability and how you have dealt with it, how you might have questioned yourself, how where you've come out the other side of all of that. I think for athletes is just as good as it is for other topics. And so I think that that's another one. We can't always, you don't need to always talk about the success here. Being vulnerable for athletes is an important theme too.
Wonderful. Thank you again to Katie Anderson for being with us today. Thank you to everyone who's attended. Really appreciate your time and all of your amazing questions. This recording will be available for a month, so if you want to share it with anyone, please tell them to go check it out. You'll get an email with a link to the recording, and if you would like a link to our fillable graphic, I just put the link in the chat again. We'll see you next month. Bye.